Welcome, my name is John, and I'm just here to discuss movies on the YT. And if you'd like to join that discussion, go ahead and smash that subscribe button and hit that notification bell as well. And today, I'm continuing my Monster Movie Monday review series leading up to Godzilla vs. Kong. I'm kind of switching up the schedule a little bit and doing kind of alternating between modern and classic movies, because the modern ones are the ones most people are probably going to want to see, and then the classic stuff, that's more of just a personal thing I wanted to explore, and this helps me do that, because otherwise I would have just procrastinated and never actually explored them. But nonetheless, today we are talking about 2014's Godzilla, directed by Gareth Edwards, who's a very underappreciated director in my opinion. I haven't seen Monsters, but the two movies I have seen, Godzilla and Rogue One, are among my favorites within those franchises. And so, let's get started. And so in 2014's Godzilla, these ancient creatures or titans rise up from the earth, or they come out of their sleep or whatever, and wreak havoc on the world. Now, the one that actually appears first and wreaks havoc is not Godzilla, which is slightly different from like the original formula. And so you got these giant parasites that are basically trying to mate with each other. You know, that's always fun. Mating's always a fun topic to have in a movie. And then Godzilla comes in to save the day while also destroying San Francisco in the process. So first of all, talking about the action, I am here to defend this movie because I think this is easily the brightest aspect of this movie, where a lot of people, this is probably their least favorite part because you don't necessarily see in full scale monster battles and stuff. But I'm here to extremely defend this movie because I think it is done amazingly well, because this movie has all the action-packed thrills that you want from a monster movie. And so you get that nice action-packed trope, while at the same time it subverts the trope in a brilliant way to where it shows you the action from a human perspective, which intensifies the action. It intensifies the thrilling effect of the action scenes. Because hypothetically speaking, if something like this were to happen in real life, we're not going to be like in the clouds or something watching these monsters battle from some, I don't know, from like the way God probably would view it. No, we would be on the ground in the middle of everything being, like in the middle of everything falling apart and buildings and everything. And because of that, it makes the action more relatable. It inserts you straight into the action, which intensifies the action. Rather than just looking at something fun, you're actually in the middle of it. And for this reason is why I think it has the most intense action that you'll see in any monster movie that I have seen, at least. It has the most intense action. And for me personally, the intensity and the thrilling nature of the action is more important than just simply seeing two people fight. I want to feel the intensity of their fights. And then quickly moving on to the acting and the characters. This is a part that's kind of, it's there. It's not necessarily a bad thing about this movie, in my opinion, because they're pretty much the best characters in this monsterverse, in my opinion. The best human characters, at least, in the monsterverse. And you've got a nice cast here with Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Elizabeth Olsen, even Bryan Cranston in the first little act. And they all deliver fine performances. They're not going for Oscars or anything, but they're delivering what they need to deliver for that to have the impact. And the characters themselves, they have decent motivations, in my opinion. You have this theme of a separation of family and searching for your family throughout this movie that I think goes well and fits well with the characters that they set up. But at the same time, it's not like you're not getting Arthur Fleck from the Joker in this movie. So now on to the visuals. this is going to piggyback off of the action category, because the way they insert you into that human perspective, they do it in a brilliant way, because they don't necessarily go the found footage POV route that Cloverfield went, but at the same time, it still takes almost somewhat of an inspiration from Cloverfield with giving you that human perspective. But in 2014's Godzilla, it takes away that found footage aesthetic, which I'll admit does do the same thing that this movie does in terms of making you feel engaged and seeing the human perspective of giant monster action. But the problem with stuff like that is there's a lot of instances where you get the POV of someone going like this while they're running, and it just gives you motion sickness, and you can't watch the movie because of that. But this takes the brilliant side of Cloverfield's aesthetic choice of getting you engaged into the action from a human perspective of a monster attack or battle, but it does it in a way that doesn't give you motion sickness. And then quickly to round out the visuals, you have some nice CGI in here. There's some moments that aren't necessarily the greatest, but it's still believable CGI, and it's still great to look at, to see these monsters fighting and everything. And then also, this movie visually kind of combines a war movie aesthetic with a horror movie aesthetic. You got like horror movie looks and colors, and you get like this war movie aesthetic, especially when you get into the third act and you have everyone in San Francisco. Yeah, they're dressed up in military uniforms for the most part, like the Aaron Taylor Johnson and, you know, that squad and stuff that he's with. But the San Francisco itself almost resembles a bombed city. And so moving on to the story and the writing, one thing this movie, I think, that holds it back just slightly is it feels like it's trying to tackle three different themes, and it doesn't fully hit either one. That being like lost family or separation or search for family. The other one being like nuclear WMD commentary, and the other being commentary on government cover-ups and conspiracies and stuff. And it never fully... Well, first of all, the third one kind of gets thrown away halfway through the film. But the other two, they're seen at the beginning and the end. The family one's seen throughout, but I don't think any of them are fully realized, even though they're still prevalent there. And even on the nuclear side, kind of with what I was saying with the visuals, they almost... One thing about this movie, thematically speaking, at the end of it at least, not so much the first two acts, but the third act, it's almost trying to draw a parallel to using Godzilla to destroy the monsters, to destroy the threat. They're drawing a parallel between that and using the atomic bomb to win World War II and destroy that threat. And you can kind of see that. You see that kind of because right before the Godzilla thing, the doctor mentions his father was in Hiroshima and everything. And so that kind of draws that comparison out. And then at the end, San Francisco, while Godzilla did save the day, it destroyed the city. Just like how, even though the atomic bomb kind of won World War II, or at least the South Pacific side of the Pacific side of World War II, it destroyed a city and harmed civilians, just like in this case. And so that's just a nice parallel that I just kind of noticed and appreciate with this movie, even though I don't think the entire movie as a whole thematically is as thematically consistent. And then lastly, the sound. I think the sound does its job. You know, the roar is fairly good, and the score, it does its job, like I was saying. It makes you feel emotional, it makes you feel engaged when it needs to, but at the same time, there's a couple moments that felt a little too reminiscent of Star Wars to me for some reason. For instance, when they're on like the boats and stuff heading to San Francisco, and you have like Godzilla with them as they head and sail towards San Francisco, it almost feels, weirdly enough, like an Imperial March type of thing, or maybe not the Imperial March. I'm not as big of a Star Wars guy. I just know it feels Star Wars-esque in that moment to me, the score. But it's still a score that does its job pretty well. And so overall, I think Godzilla is one of the best movies within the monster movie genre, especially when you get into the action and how they kind of change it up to where you have a human perspective of the action to help intensify the action. And it has some good themes that individual acts kind of are good at portraying, but none of the themes get fully realized. But visually and action-wise, I think it's a spectacular movie. And I think Gareth Edwards as a director is a very underrated director between this and Rogue One. Some of the best movies in their franchises, and 2014's Godzilla in particular, I think deserves a 4. Thanks for watching this video. If you've seen 2014's Godzilla, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments down below. Share your thoughts on whether you agree with me on the intensity of the action or not. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and smash that thumbs up icon, smash that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell as well to stay up to date on this Monster Movie Monday review series. And I will return next time when I see you again.